Robert,
Yo, it's shaking AC.
that was a quick one.
It was. I was driving the other day and like always griping about the snow and like, all the salt and dirt and all that sort of stuff. And I was thinking, this dang season, like, is there another season I can look around? And I'm like, you know what? I bet you it's like speaker season for Angela right now, you know? And whenever I think of you traveling for speaking, I think of that one scene from Pretty Woman after she's already got all the Julia Roberts, after she's got all the money from Richard Gere, and she's walking down the street on Rodeo Drive with like a big purse over her hand and this gigantic hat in like this sort of off-white pencil skirt. She's just marching and she wants to go to a shop and say, "Remember me? You wouldn't service me." And I just picture you marching through all these cities with this hat and this bag and this like pencil skirt with a jacket. And I'm like, I'm sure that's not how speaking engagements go.
Oh, I wish I'd just show up and just speak and then go. And
So are you doing a lot of those?
oh my gosh. Well, first of all, that is just so funny that that's what came out of your mouth right now. Yeah, you're right. It is speaking engagement season. That's one way to put it. That's hilarious. But yeah, because the franchisor, like as you know, franchisors often have conferences in the majority of them are around like between it seems around January to like April, May, and then they kind of in the fall, right? But some do them. I've done July before and other times. Um, but yeah, I've got four right now booked in like about a month and a half period of time. I'm gonna be away from home a lot, that's for sure. But it's as it's funny because I love it, but I also like anyone you just go like um I hope I'm get the message out there that I'm trying to get out there, and I hope my company, I'm busy because I'm trying to run a company and go do speaking, but it's all good. It's all fun.
Yeah, okay. So tell me about this message then that you're looking to get out there. This is
The
like,
message.
yeah.
Well, it's evolved over time, and I think it all stems from something that was ingrained in me in my upbringing, about owning. Ultimately, it's about owning, like taking responsibility for your actions to own the success that you can potentially have. Like own it. It's about looking in the mirror instead of looking out the window. And I find that when I like again, it's evolved over time. I talk about my background and how I had to, as a franchisee, recognize that as a franchisee, there were things that I could control. There were things I couldn't control because I was in a franchise. And being in a franchise, I mean, whether you're a business owner or a franchise or whatever, there's also external factors like the franchisor is controlling certain things, but that you may or may not agree with. But there's also the weather, your parking lot, the economy, your staff. Like there's all these things. But the moment that I figured out that I could control what I could take control of, how that was empowering. So I tell my story about that, and then I get into the five game changers, which are like different things like paying attention to my metrics, getting out into my community, right? These things, but that the ultimate game changer was really recognizing that there are things I can take control of so that I can be successful. So whenever I go through that in advance with the franchisor, if we're like trying to decide if it's a fit, they're like, I need that. I need my franchisees to hear that. So I'm curious if you have seen that with franchisees in over your time.
I see that everywhere in business. I mean, I see it everywhere, but I mean, this is kind of more a business focused podcast. I was just reading a book where somebody said, a lot of people say you learn from your mistakes, right? And this
Unless
person
you're dumb.
Yeah, this person actually said, no, you're incorrect. You're not learning from the mistakes. You're learning from the reflection on the mistakes.
Mhm.
You don't
Yeah.
reflect on them, you're not actually going to learn anything, right?
Totally.
Which
Yeah.
got me thinking about like the rhetoric that you hear everywhere. Learn from your mistakes. No, no, no. Like think about this before you start regurgitating it. And then I started thinking about the other side, where people are saying, if you want to become a franchisee or if you want a job at this place, we're looking for somebody who has integrity and somebody who's punctual and detail oriented. And I feel a lot of these candidates are like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm punctual. But they're thinking of like, if I have a job that starts at 9 o'clock and I arrive at 9:01, That's not a big deal. I'm not going to get destroyed for that, especially if it's a back office type of job, right? And here you may arrive at 9, here you may arrive at 8:59, 9:01, whatever it is. But in the world of business specifically, when you're a business owner, each one of these things are so, so fickle. They're not just a narrative that's spewed. So when somebody says you are going to be working the hardest you've ever worked, you have to follow the proven method. They'll be like, yeah, I can follow processes. No, 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 no. It's not just about in general. It's very, very direct. Like we're not blowing hot air here. It's like you have to follow it. You know what I mean? So on your point where we're talking about being accountable and accountable for your success or the requirements, it's not just sort of like this fictitious or this very broad, malleable term that's used. It's actually very direct and very
Practical?
practical. There's another word I'm looking for. Very intentional. So I think that's kind of what you're saying. Like, yeah, I'm going to be accountable for my success. Yeah, what does that mean? These aren't just words.
Mhm.
What does this accountability mean?
Yeah. I think well, and yeah, when I think about it, I just always I get frustrated when people in general, sit there and complain about, these external factors when again, they can look in the mirror and say like, what can I do about it? And if you're not willing to go do something, and okay, let me give an example. And where this comes from is, when I do my keynote, I have a slide of my dad on stilts back in 1980, when he started the company, M&M Meat Shops, and he's dressed up like a cowboy with a big foam hat. And I say, does this look like a guy that went on to build and grow and eventually sell a company that grew to almost 500 franchise locations? Like people think that, when they think about success and things, they think about, more like put together with the suit doing these things. But it's like he knew that he had to, okay, parking lot, there's construction that was impeding a little bit of the parking lot, and that might affect whether customers could get into the store, or oh, it's a snow day, we're not going to get any customers. But he was like, what can I do to get customers in the door? I can go stand at the side of the road in a too tall text costume on stilts and wave them in and smile and make them notice us.
Mhm.
Right. So it was like, what can I do? And that's what I think in franchising, there's a natural tendency to go, well, I thought as a franchisee you were going to help me grow my brand. And I think that it's just maybe not being communicated what that really means, like in the recruitment process, what does that exactly mean? And I always say, well, there would be no point of it being a franchise if we didn't need someone to go out and be the face of the brand in the local community. So like take ownership, get out there
Yeah.
and be the face, to do the things you need to do, whether that's standing on stilts or going to the networking events, joining BNI, or whatever it is.
Yeah, like, hey, Mr. Franchise Prospect, we're going to depend on you to get involved with the community to grow your brand. They're thinking, oh, yeah, I could do that. And then when push comes to shove, they're like, shoot, I don't have any ideas. Okay, so let me message my franchisor for a tip. And the franchisor says, well, have you tried Chamber of Commerce? No, I haven't. And that's sometimes where it stops. But they should be thinking, all right, Chamber of Commerce, is there another local networking event that's not involved with the chamber? What about moms and dads groups on Facebook? What about this? Like, it's
Yeah.
got to keep going. It doesn't just stop there. You've got to be accountable for that. It's not just like you're responsible for this, and you're like, yep, I'll check that off on an application.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think when you look at people that have success, it's because they accept that, okay, I got to figure this out, right? Like I got to go and figure this out no matter what. Um, and yeah, I guess what also is in my message is just it comes like one of the biggest pain points franchisors seem to have is, or not seem to have, I know they have, is franchisees, taking ownership of their success and getting out into the community and getting out there and being the face of the brand. Such a common thing we hear at our roundtables, and we see when we work with brands. And so, yeah, that's the message. That's the message for the speaking engagements. Own it. Own your success. I didn't. I don't. We ranted a little bit about it, so it might not have come out quite as clear as it does
Yeah,
when I'm
well,
actually delivering. But
yeah, I agree with you. Maybe not own your success, but own what you have to do in order to be successful.
mhm.
Let's wrap
Yeah.
it up.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Go be awesome.
Awesome.